Hi, I'm Suzie, and I'm an acrylic snob. Yeah, I think I really am. But I'm also open-minded. Dipping powders are a simplified way to create a nail. It can be a little confusing with all the steps involved, but together we will create these beautiful nails. Why am I not a fan of dip? There's a lot of things I don't like about it, but it's here, it's happening, it's popular, so I'm gonna maximize how you can get the best look out of a dipping powder. Let's get started. I've seen some people compare dipping powders to acrylic or sculpted gel nails. And in my opinion, they're not the same. They're very different in the skill level and how you build it. I've also seen people talk about dipping powders as a non-toxic or more healthy alternative to acrylic or gel nails, which is not true either. These powders are essentially made of the same when you get an acrylic nail done. So it's just a different way of doing it. And I've never really been that attracted to it because if I wanted a solid color on the nail, I would just use a gel polish. And to me, I get it a lot quicker and a lot easier. But some people are playing with it a little bit longer. When a new product comes in, everybody starts playing with it a little bit and we get new ideas. So some people are building with it a little bit, and that's why they're doing it halfway up the nail or 3/4 of the way up the nail. It can get so confusing because of the 6-7 steps you do on that nail to make a dipping powder. So I'm gonna try to break it down and make it a little bit easier so we can understand it together, okay? So I've removed all the product off my nail. I made it like a super, super thin nail, like a natural nail. I'm gonna put this dipping powder on as if this is a natural nail, okay? You can do it over acrylic, but it makes it a little bit thicker. I did that once in a video. I did it over acrylic, and it made it thicker, of course, because you can get a little bit of thickness on there for a little bit of strength. It also depends on how much you're putting on there, right? So let's start from the basics. So I'm gonna buff up my natural nails. So when I do that, I'm literally, now again, you'll see the varying colors because I do my nails here once a week and I'm doing different colors and different products, but I leave a thin layer. So sometimes there's a little bit different colors on there from the different designs. So don't let that bother you. I just left a very, very thin layer on there, acting as if I have a little bit of natural nail, okay? So you can do this directly onto your natural nail. You can push the cuticles back. Mine are already pushed back. Push the cuticles back. And it's a nice little round edge so you can get right in there, buffing up your natural nail, okay? Now I'm gonna do that to all of these. I'm gonna do the full hand here to show us. I'll focus on one nail through the entire procedure, then I'll finish up the rest. Okay, so I will buff all those up and then I will get a little duster and just gently remove the dust. Now, if you're ever worried about lifting problems, this is the moment you want to catch that. You want to make sure, now I see little spots there, little shiny spots. You want to make sure you get all of that. If you don't get that, if the product's not sticking, that could be why. Or if it lifts a little bit later, that could be why, because you've left a little spot you didn't quite catch, okay? So just have a good look. Make sure you've got all the spots. What you want to do here is you're actually removing any oils or dirt, dust, anything like that off of the natural nail so the product will stick at its optimum value, okay? That looks pretty good. Let me just get that pinky a little bit more. Pinkies, you know, you got to be careful when you're getting into those little corners, because they're little fingers. But there's an advantage of having this file with this round corner, and there's even a little bit of a square end you can get right in there, okay? Okay, that's looking pretty good. So I've buffed up all my natural nails. I'm gonna dust off. Okay, and here's another type of duster too. This one's a little bit stronger, and I might use that for the thing. We'll see which one we like better. Okay, so this is where it gets a little jiggy. You got these 6 steps. This is what I'm using. Joya Mia right now is using their dipping powders. There's lots of different dipping systems out there, but I'm going to use this one. And number 1 is bond. As a general rule, they're all about the same. The number 1 is generally the bond. Number 2 is the base, and so on and so on. So bond is like a primer. It's a dehydrator. It prepares the nail for the product to stick. Why this can be confusing too is because there is one stage here where you're like, hurry up and do this. And then the other one is wait a few minutes and do that. So I'll kind of break that down too. Okay, I'm just going to put my kit together and use it as a bit of a balance here. So I'm going to put the bond on all of them. And this is dehydrating, cleansing, and prepping your natural nail for the product to adhere. Okay, so that's the bond. We don't need to use this now. We'll just put this aside because we're done with that guy now. So the base is the next one. When you do a dip or anything, acrylic or gel or anything, I always put a thin layer of a clear or a little bit of a tinge of pink, a natural looking layer of whatever it is when I'm building the nail. Because when and if you yourself or your client wants to change the color out, filing down to the bare naked nail with the color that you have used, glitter, color, black, or anything like that, white is even hard to get off. Filing down to a bare nail is not very comfortable sometimes. So I do a thin layer of a clear on top to avoid any of that kind of trying to file it off. So you file down to the clear layer, makes your life easier. That's what this is all about, trying to make your life easier, okay? So we've got the clear dipping powder. Whenever you buy a dipping system, there's lots of colors to choose from, and they come with a clear too. This clear will be your best friend for this very first step. And I think that's with some of them, I was kind of like not liking the dipping powder so much because they would just put the color right onto the bare naked nail. And of course, they may not know all that until they start doing it and they're like, oh, I'm filing it down to that. But so that's why, you know, we just kind of take something we like and we learn how to make it work the best we can. So I've got this powder now. And okay, so we're going to put the base on. This is the stuff that smells like glue. This is the glue that actually makes the bulk of the nail, okay? So I'm going to do the one nail and go through the steps so it's not so confusing. I'm going to put the base on the entire nail, right from the cuticle to the free edge. The reason being is because this is going to be my base that I can build the color on top, but I can file down to. There is a little bit of something you have to sacrifice, and that is maybe a tiny bit of thickness near the cuticles, because when you put a base on near the cuticle, then you add your color, and then another clear on top if you want to seal that color, you're getting some thickness. But we can do a little filing too, which I'll show you. But I do think it's important to put something at the base to cover that nail entirely so you can file it off. Okay, so I'm going to apply the base. I don't want to touch the cuticle, but I do want to get right up to it. You don't want to miss a spot because this is what the powder is sticking to. You don't have it on there, it's not going to find its way in there. Okay. Now this is the glue. This is the moment where you do have to do some little bit of speedy moment so it doesn't dry. If it dries too much, well then you don't have. So I'm going to put this in and I'm going to sort of just gently put it in and I'm going to just sort of shake the product a little bit and I'm going to buff it off. That went on quite beautifully. I'm going to let it set for a second just to give this glue a second to sort of set up a little bit before I brush the dust off. You could go ahead and do all the other ones at this point while you're waiting for that guy to dry. But I'm just trying to make this simple so it's not too confusing, so I don't speed right through it and you're like, what is she doing? I'm trying to break this down so you can really, really understand what's happening. So it's setting a little bit. Now, the only reason why I'm going to do this little dusting is because I really don't want it to build up and get too thick. I want it to look very natural, very thin, and not too bulky and thick. I feel like it's setting pretty good, so I'm going to gently dust off. You can see it coming off around the skin, and it just takes any excess of powders that is on there. I don't want that on there, okay? So I've got a nice little clear base on there, and I'm gonna look at the cuticle sideways, and I'm quite happy with the way that looks, okay? So I'm finished with my clear for a second, and if I've done them all, I'm finished with my base, okay? So pretty simple. We've just gone through 1 and 2 together. We've gone through bond and base, oopsie, pretty simply. So we've got step 1 and step 2 covered. So now we're going to do step 3. So So step 3 is the color. This is where we get to have some fun and decide what color we want. I've looked through all these colors, and like I say, lots of different companies have lots of different colors, but I was kind of drawn to this one. Check this one out. So that's what we're going to do. Ooh, let's hang on to our 2. The base and the powder is what you build your nail with. We don't need the activator until we're done. Okay? So we've got the base on. We're all ready to go for color. So I'm going to put the base on. Here's where you can get a little jiggy with trying to build it a little bit. You know how they say go 3/4 of the way down or not quite close to the cuticle? And sometimes some will just kind of ramp up a little bit. That's giving the illusion of kind of building up into the apex. That's what we do with acrylic, and that's what we do with gel when we're building a nail. But it's very, very particular. We don't do it in steps like that. We try to really ramp it up so gently and custom designed to everybody's finger. Now, because these are short, you don't need much thickness. You don't need much height and apex. If I was adding a tip to these, then I would have to really build quite a bit. And you'd have to take a lot of glue to do. You could do it, but I, as a professional, would say, oh, let's do the acrylic, and then we could even put the dipping color on top of it, just as the color. I do think the dipping systems are really best for more of a shorter natural nail, so you don't have to do all that building, because that would be a lot. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to put the base about 3/4 of the way up. Okay, and I am going to dip into the powder, just ever so gently, give it a bit of a shake it off like that. Oh, that's so pretty. Great, okay, so I'm just gonna let it set for a little bit. I could even go on and do the other nails if I wanted to. I wanna give that glue a little second to cure up, right, to harden up. I wanna give the powder time to kind of sit inside there and kind of really saturate and be solid in color. Now there's not too much powder that's left over here. I'm just gonna wipe away just a tiny little bit. Lovely. And if you went ahead and did the others, you now could go ahead and do another one. So I'll just give it a couple more seconds. And then I am going to do another, and I'm gonna do it a little closer to the cuticle. See how the brush can get a little dirty? I would recommend you have a little pad of sort. You could just wipe it off, just so you don't contaminate your base color. I'm gonna just put that on there. And then I'm going to go in and dip again. There we go. And I'm gonna let that set for a little bit longer. I'm getting a tiny little buildup, and that's just getting a little bit of strength for my shorter natural nail. The longer we go in building whatever we're building, you have to have higher and higher and higher strength. Within reason, of course, you don't want this giant nail their way. If you're gonna go long though, it's gotta be ramping up to a higher apex. Because this is short, we don't need to have a big apex. So I'm gonna let that dry for a little bit. Just letting that acrylic, you can see I didn't really do it even around there. This is the thing about dip, you really got to make sure you place that properly. So now my next one, I'm going to do it right up to the cuticle to make sure that I'm getting the powder everywhere I want it to be. I don't want it to be missing. But I'm going to cover the whole nail because I want the powder to cover on the whole nail. I don't want it to be an uneven application. Okay, now I'm gonna dip right up to the cuticle. Look at that, that's very, very pretty. Very nice. I think we're done with the color. It looks rather pretty, it does. I like that. So, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a layer of clear on top too, almost like a clear capping with my color here, because I'm going to do a little filing on here to make it even a little smoother. And when I do that, I don't want to file through to my color. So I'm going to preserve that a little bit by doing a layer of clear capping. So I'm just going to make sure this is dry. I don't want to rush it. Make sure that it's nicely saturated in there. It's a little bit dirty. Now, this company in particular, number 6, is a brush saver. So you can clean your brush with that. Okay, Going to assume it's dry. Right down toward the cuticle because I'm going to cover this whole thing. This is the glue, remember. This is actually glue. I can smell it. And I'm going to take my clear and I'm going to dip ever so gently. And I'm going to knock it all off. And now it's covered it quite nicely. Okay? And I'm going to let that sit for a bit. I just want to let that settle, make sure that it's happy with what it has on there. Nice cuticle coverage. If you find you miss a little spot and it just didn't work, take a little bit of your base, put it in there, and you could even pour a little bit in that section right there. So now you've built your color, you got a little bit of structure on there, you've secured it with some clear. You don't have to do that step, by the way. But now we have to seal it. It has to set, like final. That's what the activator is about. Okay. So I am literally just going to paint the activator on the whole thing. There we go, activator. And now I'm just gonna let it set for a few minutes. I don't want to interfere with this guy too soon. I'm just going to let it cure and set and harden the whole thing all together. And then after that's done, we're gonna file it. So one of the reasons why I probably don't like dips so much is because I find the whole thing tends to be a little bit thick, but that's where we're gonna do some filing to sort of compensate for that. Now I didn't have to do 3 coats of this, but if you're trying to build it with any type of strength, you do wanna do a few layers on there. That's what makes the amping up to build it up. I think that's set good enough. So now we're gonna file it a little bit. So remember those 3 files that I have here in the filing system? I have 5, but 3 that I would do some shaping with. I'm gonna grab the coarse file that I have. So this file, it's got a pretty good grit on there, and I am going to file this guy and try to give it some shape, because you really can't get that perfect shape with just piling on and layering and dipping. If you want to sort of fine tune it a little, you want to be able to file it a little. You can actually see where I feel that it's too thick. Along the sides here, it's a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to file that and try to see if we can bring it down a little bit. Yeah, that's looking a bit better. And I'm going to go on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to buff this guy up and give it some shape. And I'm going to go around the cuticle a little bit, just to make sure I bring that thickness down, because the telltale of nails is after it grows out for a couple of weeks, you'll see a little ridge. You don't want that little ridge. The smoother that transition is on your nail plate when it starts to grow out, that's just wonderful. If you can make that nice and smooth and you don't have a little ledge there, because it's so irritating when there's a little ledge. Remember, because we put the little layer of clear on to protect the natural nail, then we put the coats of color on, it can be a little bit thicker. So just give it a little swipe with the file and you're going to be okay. So I'm not hitting my color. Look on my file. There's no color on there right now. That's because I'm not hitting through. I'm just filing that clear layer on top. Okay. As with anything, the more you do it, the more you learn. I don't do this on a regular basis. I sculpt acrylic and I sculpt gel on a regular basis. So dipping system is a newer system to me, but the concept is the same, is to create a beautiful nail. When I'm doing this, I have learned in doing this system that I probably wouldn't do. Remember I did 3/4 and then another one and another one? Because it's a shorter nail, I don't need that thickness. And it covered pretty good, because I'm saying that because when I put the clear capping on top, that gives me a chance to file it. If you file the sparkles direct, it can turn silver because you're hitting the sparkle, and sparkles sometimes don't like to be cut in half because they turn silver. So you do want to clear cap it, but then it adds a thickness. Then you want to sculpt a little, right? To get the nice shape. So maybe just do 1 or 2 layers of the glitter, and that's what I'm going to do next to fill out the other ones. Then I'll compare the difference in the thickness, okay? The longer you go, however, you do need to build up the strength, because you need that apex to create the strength so they don't break, right? But when they're shorter, there's less option for the nail to break. So you don't need to build it so high. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other ones. I'm quite excited. want to apply the top coat. That's where everything comes to life. Now to prepare these, you don't want any dust on them. So you can go wash them, but don't use any soap because the oil from the soap could interfere with the top coat. That goes with anything that you're doing. You want to keep them oil free. So you could just take a little duster and always nice to do that. Okay, so there was something inside there. So we're going to put the top coat on. There's nothing like putting top coat on a glitter anything. It just comes to life. Look at the richness in there. It's just beautiful. I have noticed sometimes when I do the top coat, it just kind of soaks in. So I do like to do 2 coats of the top coat, just letting it settle in between. So pretty. Well, it's proof that I'm not beyond learning something new. There's always something new to learn. Okay, I'll do a second coat. Let's check out the review. Don't forget to give your cuticles a little love with a little bit of oil, okay? So I want to thank you guys for sticking this far because now I'm going to answer a few questions if you have a few moments. Got a great question from Angel. Suzie, what would you have done differently if Grant had lifting and had glued a fully lifted nail back on? Or if he had glued a partially lifted nail back down? Clients do that all the time. I recently did a video with Grant and we were doing like a renovation on his nail. And sometimes clients they'll lift or they'll break and they'll glue it. Naturally, I would do the same to try to hold it together before I can get into the salon to get them to fix. So what you do is when there's glued on nail, I would never take product and put it on top of a glued nail. That is inviting a whole bunch of problems known as a slang term, greenies or pseudomonas. We don't want to go there. So I would have filed all of the lifted glued nail on off. I would have taken it off completely, get rid of it. Because it's ugly, it's lifted. We know at one point it came off, so we just got to get rid of it altogether. Good question. But yeah, any glued nail, I always get rid of it. Ryan, hi Suzie, I love your channel. This is Ryan's mom, not Ryan, okay? I love doing my nails, but they keep popping off, even if I'm just doing my hair or the dishes or making the bed. I have prepped them, did the base coat, top coat them. Is anything else I could do? I live in the UK, so I can't just pop over and see you. Well, Ryan's mom, that's a really good question. Lifting is probably one of the most common questions because we are taking this product and sticking it on this natural surface. So there's going to be some that is going to work and some that's not going to work, right? So the reason why you're having some lifting is the majority of the reason of that. 99% of the reason is because it's just not prepped properly. And you say you're doing the right things, and I think you probably think you are, and maybe you are, but I don't know what the steps is that you did. It could have been oil on the nail. Maybe you overlooked. Maybe the file that you're using isn't quite good enough to braze the nail enough to make it gritty enough to adhere. Maybe the application is a little too wet or too dry, so it's not sticking very good. So when you say that you're just doing your dishes or you're brushing back your hair and they come off, well, they're not actually on. That's why they come off when you just go like that or do the dishes. They're not actually on, so they're not adhering right from the get-go. Got a lot of videos on that.
I'll put a card up to one of them.
There we go. Yeah.
And a link in the description.
Yeah. So it'll be in your preparation, sweetie. That's the most common problem that I have. That's a good question. And I will do some more videos breaking that down a little bit carefully. Pamela, she says, can you use a UV lamp with just plain nail polish to quicken the drying process? Oh, wouldn't that be awesome? No, you cannot. Gel polish and nail polish are very, very different. You need the lamp with the gel polish because they're chemically designed that way together. But nail polish works that just the air dries them, which is great. So it's just a matter of patience. You just have to wait, sweetie. If you're going to use nail polish, a tip I can give you though is put it on nice and thin. You're better with 3 thinner coats than 2 thicker coats. It'll dry quicker. You can also wait till they get to that sort of dry point, maybe a couple minutes, stick them in cold water. That can help make the drying process or seem like it goes faster. It does harden the polish, but don't keep it wet. Don't put a hairdryer. That won't work. Great questions, you guys. Thanks so much for joining me. I really look forward to this. We get together every week and learn some more stuff about nails. And like I say, I learn stuff about nails too. Catch you guys in the next video.